Hi, I want this to be rather quick introduction, so I'll just show you the index, and there you have seen the index, and show you a bit what some types of levels you will be able to create, which should be running in the background now. And I'm just filling out the space or talking while you're seeing what you can actually build after you watch this tutorial. So basically the level editor has 4 areas: top, bottom, left, right, soon, right. So here are the different editors. Enemy, bullet, and here is like the edit menu, undo, redo, bug report or feature request if you want that, toggle the grid, and here you test run the level from the start. Here you test run the level from its current position in the level. File menu, so here you have new file, save, open, publish, which I'll go through later, and this opens up the level options dialog. And here you have the copy, so you create a copy of the current level. Maybe you find a very exciting level that is really fun, but it's a bit too easy, or you want to like improve some things on the level. Then you can just open the level, create a copy of it, and then fix the things that you want. Maybe you want to increase the level speed or something, and then publish the level again. Other players won't see you as the original creator, but you'll be seen as like edited. This level has been edited by your name. And here are all the tools that manipulate the canvas, which is this. This is the canvas. And here is both tool options and selected options. So if I select this terrain, I can change the terrain color or opacity. And at the bottom row we have tooltips. So if you hover over things, it will show you tooltips. To the right you have YouTube tutorial. So if you click this here, you will actually get to the tutorial, which is to the left of it. So if you hover over something like zoom out, and I click here, I'll get to the zoom out tutorial. When you first create a level, you'll get this screen. So you'll print out a name, then you can select a theme, any of these themes. I'll select this. I'll actually select that one. And here you can change the music. So if I start the music, if I talk a little bit louder, maybe you can hear me, or I'll just decrease the... Yeah, so now I think you can hear me and hear some music at the same time. Or change the music to whatever you want. So I want this music, and I want to increase the level speed to 30. Here's like a screenshot which will be displayed whenever you take a screenshot. Optional description if you want, a story or something you want to tell before the player tells or plays the level. And here the text that will be displayed after the player has finished the level and actually completed it. Drawing a terrain is actually quite simple. You select this tool, I just press like this and draw, and lines are not allowed to intersect. So if I draw like this, it will actually show an arrow over here. And then deselect by pressing escape. If you want to have like clear corners, or like you press once and then you like press like this and you get sort of a rectangle. If you want to draw a circle, you can just press once and twice, and that will actually be the radius of the circle. So it's very easy to draw circles. So if you want to continue on that tool, it will always continue from the end. This tool allows you to add and remove areas to the selected terrain. So if I start from the inside, it will add to the terrain. If I start from the outside, it will remove. And these two tools are more fine adjustments or finer adjustments if you want that. The add corner tool, add or move corner, you can move corners, or if you press between two corners, you can add one. And remove corners is just pressing on the corners to remove them. And then we have terrain options, which is here. So here are like the default colors. If I want to change like opacity, I can do that. Maybe color. You can either select the select tool, and then like doing this, it will select these three. So if I want to select this one, I just hold Shift. If I hold Control, it will remove. The same is actually with the select. So if I hold Shift, I will add, and holding Control will remove this from the selection. Moving stuff is very simple. You just select the Move tool and just click on things to move them. And if you want to move several things, you can just select multiple things and move them at the same time. Really basic. To delete things, you just select the Delete tool and you can click on things to delete them. Or you can select, like have multiple things selected and press delete. And it will delete them. Yeah, no. Either you select this tool and just left click, or if you have another tool selected, you can middle click on the mouse and drag. Or if you are on a laptop, you can hold the space and left click to scroll. On mobile devices, you just use two fingers to scroll around. You can just click here, click out to zoom out, and this button resets the zoom. Or if you have, if you want to do it faster, you can just hold down Control and scroll with the mouse to scroll in and out. Select this tool, add enemies, press this button over here, and here you are. You can select, here are all the downloaded, and if you want to search more on the internet, you can do that over there. So there exist three different types of enemies, or actually like they have three different movement types. This one is a path. You can see that by the dot and then like a bow or something. And here is AI, which moves somewhat randomly, but in a, yeah, it's really up to the creator how it moves. So they move quite differently, but the path always follows the path, and just a dot is stationary, so they always stay the same. We'll use in the way slow. So this was a path enemy. If you don't put it on a path, it will become stationary because it doesn't know how to move. Otherwise, just to move it to a path, so I've already drawn a path, and when you go over it, it snaps to the path. Creating paths is very simple, so you just click, 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 and click. To move a corner, you just click on the corner, and in the future you will be able to click between corners to add, but if you do that new, it will just add a new corner, and we don't want that. So for now you have to use this add move corners, so now you can add corners between if you want to. And to remove corners, you use to remove corners tool like that, but I want that. And there exist three types of paths. So back and forth, it goes to the end, then it goes back the same path to the beginning and to the end, to the beginning. Loop, oh shit. Loop actually goes like from the start to the end and then goes directly back to the start and follows the path again directly back to the start. Once follows the path until it comes to the end, then it just continues straight out to infinity or something like that. Creating multiple or spawning multiple enemies is also very simple. If you have one, let's say I have an enemy here and I want to like spawn 5. I just go to the enemy options. I want to spawn 5, and time between them should be like 1 second, I think. Yeah, so 1 second between the times. Just selecting the enemy or enemies that you want, and then to create a spawn trigger you just press here. Let me disable this. And to create a despawn trigger you use that. Enemies have like default despawn and spawn triggers, so you don't have to do that. But if you want to like create a more custom one, custom spawn and despawn triggers, you can do that. If you select the trigger, then you can click on enemies that you want to like despawn at the selected trigger. And there is also like a spawn delay, so when the trigger is triggered. Did I mention when the trigger is triggered? The trigger is triggered once it's entered the screen. You can have a delay in seconds for that. Despawn delay is much larger. So you can basically use the same trigger for spawning and despawning, but then setting a delay for like 30 seconds. And here I've actually pre-done some triggers. So here's a path, here's stationary enemy, and here's an AI enemy, which uses these like this for spawn and this for despawn. And they also have like 2 enemy copies. So let me start from like here and show you, we can die, how it works. So there you see how that works, which wasn't much to see, but anyway. Let's say I'm finished with the level and I want to publish it. Not sure we can actually do that. Well, maybe we can. So I have to create a screenshot, so I'll do that now. So if you test run the level, you have a button over here. So I'll just take a screenshot here and go back with escape. And now if I go to the info, you can see the screenshot over there. So now if I click publish, it says your level is too short. It's only 18 seconds long and it has to be at least 30 seconds. So let me just cheat a little, create a, how is it now? Now it's okay. So this says like, this is irreversible and once published, the assets cannot be deleted. So if I press publish, I won't be able to edit these. I can still create copies of them and edit those, but I can't edit the actual uploaded levels. My tutorial enemy, no description, no description, save. So it almost looks like the same in as the level editor. Here you have movement settings for the enemy, weapon settings, like shape settings, color settings, collision settings. Following a path, which is these once loop back and forth, which I've described earlier in the level editor, but once you just follow once and then it goes on in infinity. It doesn't do that in the enemy editor because then you would only see it once and the path would be empty. Loop goes to the end, then goes directly back, and here you can see back and forth. Once it reaches there, it will go back the path. And if you have, so you have movement speed. Turning speed is how fast the enemy turns. So if you have very high, it will I think this is degrees per second, so 50 degrees per second. If you have it like really low, it can be hard for it to like, if you have too low on paths, they get stuck. And AI is like you have, so let me turn off turning speed and those. So basically it tries to keep the distance, like minimum distance 20 coordinates and maximum distance 40 coordinates. If it's outside that range, it will move itself. If you have turning speed, it will like turn like this. And if you want it to move while it's in this space, you can have like random movement. So let me turn off turning speed again. So this is how often it will get a new movement, random movement direction. So if you wanted to like have lots of random movement all the time, once it's inside, it will be like that. If you don't want it to like almost never get another random movement, you have it like that. And you can also like decrease the distance, so now it will always try to hit the player. And stationary is basically, yeah, just stationary. You have to turn on weapons and then select a bullet type. So I will use fine bullet. And here you can select the speed of the bullet, so actually let's use rather high speed. And relative to the level speed is, I'll actually show you a clip right now. So the top is using bullets that are relative to level speed. So if you can see here, this bullet will actually almost reach the end same time as that bullet, or and the top one also, the bullets always have the same speed. They are not relative to the level speed. And the reason is like, if you have an enemy that's in the center and it shoots a bullet to the left and right, with relative speed it will take the same amount of time for the bullet to reach the right and the left side of the edge. And here you can see that some bullets actually never reach the right side of the edge. And the damage is, yeah, how much damage it does once it hits the player. Cooldown is like weapon cooldown, so if you wanted to have like more, seem a bit random, you can have different values here. Otherwise, same value is like good. If you wanted to shoot often, you can do like this. And here are how it aims. So I'll actually just take it down to 0.2. And here it aims on the player. So now you can see it always aims where the player is currently, which is if you move all the time, it's hard for them to hit the player, or they will actually never hit the player if you move. This one, on the other hand, tries to calculate where the enemy is heading, or where the player is heading, and tries to cut the player off. So now it's much more harder to not get hit at all. This is the direction the enemy is moving, and here is a specific direction. So if you wanted to always shoot down, you can use 207. Oh yeah, there's a bug about that. Yeah, you should be able to write 270. Oh god damn it, it's really hard. Oh, maybe it's impossible. Yeah, so this is almost downwards. And if you want, you can have like, so they do it in a rotating manner. So let's do 180 or something. So now it moves half a circle per second, because it's 180 degrees per second. And we're at 184. This is just the starting angle. Like starting angle and rotation speed. Rotation speed, what? It works? It didn't work before? What? Well, if it works, it works. So yeah, it's basically this. So starting location, if it doesn't, damn it. Now I won't be able to set it. Oh, I was able to set it to 0. Starting location, this doesn't work if like, so if I set this to something and then have like turning speed, it doesn't work because it has to turn. Which could work, but I have just set it so it doesn't. Radius, woo. Like, yeah, rectangle shape or something like that. Triangle, let's see, height. And if I want to create a shape, I just select this, and I advise you to like zoom in a bit and then create a shape like this, because you can't scale the enemy yet. And otherwise it just works like the terrain editor should work like the terrain editor. Doesn't work like that really. Well, that's weird. It should work like that. And then you can like change the corners if you want. One thing that isn't in the is like set center. So this is set center, this is reset center. Basically, if we have like a rotation speed, so now it rotates around the center. If I set the center to like here, it's hard to tell, but it rotates around this edge. And if I set it outside, it will behave a little weirdly. Which could be like fun if you have an AI or something, and it will behave weirdly. The color options is like basically just a slider which you can change the color on, and you can only change from like red color on enemies and orange color on bullets. And lastly, you have the collision damage. So this is actually damage per second that the enemy does, unless this is clicked, because now the enemies get destroyed or explode when they hit the player. So you can actually do something like AI and have them like to seek like a suicide bomber or something like that, and turn the speed up, and it will be a very hard enemy to avoid. So here you can, well, it's basically the same as these are the same as I went through the level editor, and here are like some options which these aren't saved for the bullets actually, because the enemies decide how much damage the bullets will do or the weapon does, because you just load the bullet into a weapon, so it's actually the weapon that does the damage, or speed too, and there's no damage here. And so these are just like testing how it would look like. Basically you never have to change these unless you want. Time for some more advanced topics like enemy spawning. So the default trigger for enemies are that they will be triggered once they enter the screen. So let's say that this trigger here actually is the right side of the screen. So it goes like this, this, and then if we say the top enemy, so now it spawns. And for these two, these are actually enemy copies, and I've 1.5 seconds between them, so they actually spawn earlier, because once the trigger is here, they were 3 copies, so once it's here, the third enemy will spawn right now. So the 2 has to spawn before that. What that means is that maybe the first enemy spawns over here, and the second one over here, and then the third one over there. Now the first one starts and it goes like that, and the same with this, but it goes in the other direction. So maybe here the first enemy is over here or something like that. This one is over here, and then the second enemy triggers here. So the first enemy is like here, the second just triggered, so it's still there, and it's still there, and then the third one, so maybe the first enemy is here, second is there, and so on. I'll actually show how this works. So now you can see they were a bit closer, but all had spawned before when the trigger got here. So in other words, if I set this enemy as this trigger, and then I select this enemy, so spawn delay, you could say that it's negative, -3 seconds. Despawning works for stationary, it's whenever they are fully out of screen, they despawn. Path enemies are that they despawn after both they are fully out of screen and the path is fully out of screen. And the reason for that is if the enemy is moving like back and forth, the enemy could be here and actually faster than level speed, so it would actually go outside the screen and enter it again. For AI enemies, despawn when or after 20 seconds. So how do you test enemies correctly? Because sometimes you'll notice that the enemies doesn't really spawn in the way you want to. And basically, like if there's an X, they shouldn't spawn. They spawn in this version because there's a bug, but they shouldn't spawn. So now it's actually 3 enemies in one over there. And like if I go back a bit further, so these are 3 enemies. But if I go back a bit further, you can see that it still doesn't look right. This isn't 3 enemies. So what you have to do then is go like even further. You can always test run the level from the start, then all enemies will always spawn correctly, but this should be sufficient, starting from here. And now you can see now they spawn correctly. And yeah, so basically that's it. If you notice that the enemies doesn't spawn correctly, just go back a bit, and if that doesn't work, go back even further, or always just like start from test play the level from the start, and it should work.